Hello.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Now 22, but 23, many participants there. Um, we have just another 1 minute's time. Just a moment.
Okay.
Again, I will try to share the screen. You see?
Yes. Yep.
So this is the agenda today.
Great.
Maybe. So I'm hosting a webinar. So from my point of view, I don't know how the people participating is watching, how the screen looks like.
So I think so the screen looks fine. I see a little version of you, and then I see a big slide. So
Okay.
that looks very good.
Okay.
If they have a question, there's a button at the on the bottom, at least of my screen, where you can raise your hand and ask a question.
Okay.
Or chat.
Good. Just a moment. Okay, now 32 people is there and it's 9:30. So I sent you the list of participants already.
Yes.
Yeah, 60 is registered. Okay. Okay, let us start. Okay. I will start in Japanese first. 皆様おはようございます。ボストンとつないで IT ストラテジーのマルコ・ボーアさんとお話をしたいと思います。事前に私のウェブでご案内申し上げましたが、ちょっとお待ちください。今、画面を共有します。で本日の流れですけども、最初にちょっと質問させていただいて、その後、マルコ・ボーアさんの方から、The evolving impact on the coronavirus upon digital print provider and equipment provider industry ということで、最近のレポート、一番新しいレポートについて彼にお話し願います。その後、時間の許す限りですね、全部で1時間ぐらい見込んでますけども、ディスカッション Q&A ということでお願いしようと思います。Okay, now Marco, so thank you for joining or be a partner for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Ohayo gozaimasu.
Ohayo gozaimasu. So, just, again. So I think it is not anymore necessary for me to introduce you, but you are very much well known in Japan. So not only Japan, of course. Yes. Would you introduce yourself just in 2 minutes?
Oh boy. Okay. So thank you again, Ono-san, for inviting me to participate today. So my name is Marco Boer with ITStrategies. Many of you, I think we know, and we try to help the digital printing industry to develop their next generation of products. We size markets, we track them, and basically try to be the advisors to the industry. And we have the great fortune to be able to talk to lots of different commercial printers and label converters and textile converters, and you name it, anything that relates to digital printing that's not in the office or in the consumer space. So that's our background.
Okay, thank you. So actually that I have prepared some very basic questions, which I'm going to ask everybody in the future who joins this webinar. But I think we should do it in the end of after your speech, after your presentation, because one by one, if I go through, it may take 5 minutes for one question. So I will do it later. Okay.
All right.
Now, I would like to ask you to start reporting, and we are talking about your view, what is happening or what will happen after Corona on the digital printing industry. Could you please?
Okay.
Yeah.
So apparently I'm sharing my screen. So can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I've prepared a number of slides. There's too many to go through, but it is our perspective on what this impact is on specifically the digital printing industry. So first of all, we don't have the right answers. Nobody does. Nobody knows what's going to happen and why. You can't predict the future. You can't relate it to the Great Depression or the Spanish flu or any other major disaster. because this is so unusual. So the only thing we can do is try to look at things in terms of what will happen short term, meaning, who's going to survive and who's not financially, and then long term, meaning what are the potential habit changes? Ono and I were speaking earlier about how life in Japan might dramatically change for the office worker now that they're having to work from home as well. So anyway, life is going to change, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
The bad news is, of course, short term, it's difficult. The good news is, and I mean this sincerely, I really do believe this is true, over the long term, meaning 2024 and beyond, this is going to be very good for digital printing. And it's going to be very good for digital printing for a number of reasons. One, this is what we call an infrastructure destruction event. In other words, people who are buying print are going to buy print very differently when we come out of this. They're going to buy very short run quantities. They're going to buy just what they need. They're going to want to test things more often. Is this a good kind of print content, or could I do something that's better? And so the amount of pressure that's going to materialize for these very short runs for more relevant content is going to force things more and more towards digital printing. And those who remain with offset print, they're going to be caught short because the long runs of offset are going to disappear. The medium runs are going to get smaller and smaller. And so the only area where you can really make money is in the production of print that people want to buy, right? But it's going to be a much smaller scale industry. It might be more profitable, and it will be very good for digital print, but it is going to be a much smaller industry as we emerge out of this. So that's the first observation. The second big thing that everybody's asking is, how long is this going to take, right? And so I told you earlier, there's no good precedent or no good example. But if you do look at other recessions in history, the last one in 2001 was about 10 months. And then 2008 was even shorter. And so how long will it take to recover? Best guess, at least probably 6 to 8 months. And the big question now is, what does that look like? So in the US and probably in Japan, everybody is talking about the shape of the recovery. Is it going to be what they call a quick V, meaning we go down very quickly, but we come back up very quickly? And there's certain print applications, by the way, that I think will have a deep V, like direct mail, point of purchase signage. Once the stores reopen, that will come back very quickly. The other option is we have this U shape, which means it's going to gradually come back. And then the worst case scenario is this elongated recession, meaning it's going to come back really, really slowly. But by the way, that is a real fear still, because, I can tell you personally, the university of where my daughter attends has told her that they may not have classes this fall because they're worried about a resurgence of the coronavirus when they get all these children all together in very close, campuses. So maybe they delay the start of college in September. Maybe they don't reopen until January. So, nobody knows. Nobody said anything as to what will happen. But our best projection is it's going to be somewhere in the end of Q4 that things will start to, come out of this very bad situation. So what else is going to happen? So one of the big concerns we have is something we call habit change. In other words, are we going to learn to live with a lot less print? The things that we're printing today, like marketing brochures, collateral, do we really need that many? Big question. Do you really need all those contracts signed in paper with the Hanko seal? Or could you, process them electronically with digital signatures?
Right.
Another potentially, I think it's highly likely thing that will happen is you'll see a lot of these small print shops go out of business. The ones that are owned by mom and pop will probably survive as long as they don't have a lot of debt. But in North America, and I think in Europe as well, there has been many what we call roll-ups. So a big private equity comes in, they buy 3, 4, 5, 6 print shops, put them together, reduce the cost, and try to squeeze out the profit. These guys are going to go out of business because they don't generate enough money to service the debt. And so what will happen is you're going to get a lot of used equipment, much of which, by the way, is very good used equipment, come onto the market. And so what that means is that new equipment sales, particularly for production and graphics printers, are going to be challenged for the next 8 months. And the other big issue is that the banks are already very reluctant to lend money to print providers.
I'm not surprised.
And so that's going to make things a little bit more difficult. You know, in the end, there's ways around it. So for example, equipment manufacturers like Domino, they are self-financing leases for their customers. Others are saying you get the equipment for free for 2 years, but you have to have a minimum amount of monthly print volume. And so you'll see interesting, you know, options in order to keep the market going. The good news, by the way, in all of this is that there is still printing that's going on, and people are buying ink and toner. So, and that's very profitable still. So our industry is in many ways very fortunate compared to somebody who was in the restaurant business or the concert business or the movie business. My God, those are difficult. Okay. So what can we do now? Well, there's a number of things we can do now. First of all, if you're an equipment vendor, you need to identify which of your customers are likely to survive and which ones may not survive. If they can survive, maybe with delayed payments, great, help them. They'll be grateful forever. If they're not going to survive because they have too much debt, prepare to take their equipment back so that you can release it, because you don't really want that being sold on eBay, because then you lose control over the quality of that equipment. If you, as the vendor, buy it back from that customer, refurbish it, the next customer is going to have a very good piece of equipment that you can get a lot of volume from, right? As opposed to buying something from eBay, which may or may not work. So that's a big thing. The other issue, and it's a bit of a sad one, is many of your partners, your business partners, may not be financially stable. And so what that means is, you know, for example, to pick on somebody, I don't think they're on the call here, but our friends at Czar, right? Czar may not survive.
May not.
And so maybe they go private, right? But as a publicly traded company, probably very difficult for them to survive. So maybe they make an interesting acquisition for something. Right? You see companies like Kornit, right? Which was overvalued for many years. You know, now all of a sudden, maybe they become very affordable to acquire by somebody else.
Who buys?
So you'll see lots of activity in mergers and acquisitions during the next 8 months, because there is opportunity. You know, not everybody will benefit, but those who have strong balance sheets, particularly the large Japanese equipment manufacturers, it's actually a really good opportunity to buy certain companies to get into new markets to grow.
For them to buy those companies.
Yes.
Like, okay, you just said the big company that the Ricoh, Canon, Fujifilm, Konica Minolta, blah, blah, blah. So are you suggesting them to buy so devalued company like Kornit, you just said, or Czar? Is it your...
Yes.
Okay.
Now, maybe not those two companies, but there'll be, you know, dozens of others that might be more affordable now than they've ever been.
Sure.
That once the industry recovers, will get you as the big equipment manufacturer into all these new markets much faster than if you were to try to develop them on your own.
Yes. Oh, let's discuss later. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes. All right. So what else can we do? Well, a few things. One is, you know, we need to promote print as being valuable to the economy. So maybe we can have some nice marketing studies. I know the 3D inkjet printer manufacturers are putting out lots of positive news about how they're helping to make masks and things like that. Communicate to your suppliers, right? The smaller companies who make rollers and wheels and nuts and bolts, and tell them, you know, we'll help you so that you don't go under, because we need you. Now's the time to really also reconfigure maybe your product line strategy. One of the big opportunities, I believe, is to go into print providers and say, you need to rebalance your equipment. Get rid of that offset now. Get more digital, because when things recover, you're going to need more digital. So look very carefully what you need to keep, what you need to sell. So now's the time to plan. And then, of course, you know, look very closely at what kind of government stimulus options are available, right? Europe, they're doing a great job. Most of the countries are offering 90% salaries to all the employees of private companies.
Europe, Europe, yes. In Japan, no.
Yeah, US, no.
Okay. Okay.
So it depends. So look at it by region. And then last, you have to start looking at this by application. So I've come up with about 12 different applications. I'll run you through some of them just to give you a flavor, which applications we think will do well and which ones are difficult. So we'll start with books.
Yeah.
So the way to interpret this is there's an impact upon the print provider, the people who print. There's an impact upon the equipment manufacturer for equipment sales, and then for toner and ink, and then print heads. And so, you know, it's like a traffic light. Green means not a lot of impact. It's okay. Orange means warning, and red means, ooh, not so good, right?
Okay.
Bad impact.
Okay.
So, and then for each, I'll give you the downside of what could happen to the market, and then the upside. And then I'll give you a relative sort of best estimate how bad this is going to be for digital printer revenues through the end of 2020. So books. First of all, for print providers, it's actually not so bad, because when people are at home, there's only so much Netflix you can watch.
Yeah.
And so people are actually reading more. In North America, Amazon, of course, is very powerful. They control 50% of all book sales in North America. But there's also smaller online networks that are owned by the distributors like Ingram. And, you know, last year, Ingram would ship something like 20,000 books a week through their online service. Last month, or 2 weeks ago, they were shipping 350,000 books.
Wow. Wow.
So people are hungry for online sale, even though the store is closed, they're buying online. So that's the good news. The bad news for the equipment manufacturers, nobody's going to be buying new inkjet presses or toner presses for book printing. You'll buy gently used, so not so good. But the good news is there's ink volume going through it and toner volume. Now, there is a strong upside. So the upside is, first of all, much of the digitally printed books are actually for education. And so all the states and all the governments have to have books ready for September when kids go back to school.
Oh yeah, okay.
So that's built in. So that's good. The other big thing is that, and this is more North America, but the largest book manufacturer in North America is Quad. Quad publicly stated that they wanted to close that division, or at least sell it. They cannot find a buyer, and they have now physically closed all the plants, allegedly because of the coronavirus. What that means is that all the publishers need to find other sources who can print their books. And instead of going to, let's say, LSC, which is the second biggest book manufacturer, they're saying too risky, because LSC just declared bankruptcy this week. So all the small and medium book manufacturers are doing extremely well because they're picking up all this volume. The net effect is that we believe, for a digital vendor perspective, for hardware and ink together, you might see a 15% decline in revenue this year. So, you know, it's declined, but it's not that bad. And out of all the applications we look at, book printing, digital book printing accounts for about, I think, 12% of revenues of vendors who are in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not overly important, but it's an interesting one.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Other markets, you look at
Oh, catalog. Oh, the red light.
Oh my Buddha,
Yeah.
bad situation for
Yeah.
now. You know, catalogs have been in decline for a long time. No business is open, right?
Mm-hmm.
No business, so business to business catalog doesn't work. Business to consumer, a lot of that is related to fashion.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't buy stuff in the stores.
Mm.
And so, and the problem with fashion is we're now entering the spring season. If you don't sell that material now, those clothes,
Mm.
it's going to be too late. Nobody wants to buy spring clothes in the summer or fall.
Right.
So they have to dump them now. So all advertising money at retailers is going to internet advertising.
Okay.
None is going to catalogs. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a bad situation. There
Okay.
are some small windows of opportunity, but frankly, you're going to see at least a 50% decline.
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
not good. Direct mail. Direct mail is the sharp V. So at the moment, all advertising, print advertising is discretionary, meaning if I don't want to spend the money, I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
I can maybe do more online, right?
Yeah.
So short term, it's not so good. The only area that's really strong, and this is really an American thing, is what we call solicitation letters.
Solicitation.
The American Red Cross is asking for money for donations.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
Right? The food banks are asking for donations. President Trump is asking for donations for his reelection. All of that direct mail is going forward.
On paper, on paper.
On paper. Oh,
Oh,
yes.
really? Yeah, I'm
Yes.
not American, so I'm not familiar with that kind of action. Yeah, okay.
Yes. And the reason it's on paper is because you cannot stop it. If you send somebody an email, it will go into your junk folder. Right? You will never see it. But on paper, you cannot stop it. So paper is very important. Also, you know, the people who tend to donate a lot of money in the US are older. And so they prefer paper rather than internet.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so that business is very strong.
Okay.
Once the stores reopen, we believe that you'll see a tremendous resurgence in demand for particularly digitally printed direct mail. So people are going to have very short campaigns to get rid of what they had. Then they're planning new campaigns. And so instead of sending out 5 million pieces of direct mail, they're going to send out 100,000 pieces. And so that's going to be very beneficial to digital printing.
Okay.
Short term, not good. Vendor revenue will go down, we think, 30% for digital printing manufacturers.
Okay.
And it accounts for about 15% of all vendor revenue.
Okay.
General commercial print. So that includes things like marketing collateral, business cards,
posters,
anything, that businesses, you know, get from a general commercial printer.
Okay.
This is going to be very hard hit for two things. One is clearly nobody's ordering anything now. They're using up what they have in their closets and they're not buying new stuff. When they do start buying new stuff, it's going to be in much smaller quantities because they're scared to death that, you know, the products that they have today in inventory are going to be obsolete. There'll be new products coming. They just don't want that much stuff anymore. So this is going to shrink down tremendously. What this will do is that, you know, particularly for equipment manufacturers with very expensive equipment, let's say, for example, Landa, make it very difficult for them to find a lot of customers.
I'm not surprised. Yes.
You need to have a lot of volume to fill one of those presses. So, you know, they will find customers. Of course they will. But it's not going to be as easy as it was. The good news is for companies
that's the good news. Yes.
Well, the good news is for companies that have mid-range copier MFPs, so like a you know, Konica Minolta 14,000 or a Ricoh C9200, those kinds of products, I think will do incredibly well as the market returns because it is a relatively low capital investment. The output quality of these devices is beautiful. It does almost everything these days that an Indigo B3 device does. but at much lower cost.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't need B2 size, sheet size, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a lot of volume,
Okay.
those kind of devices, I think, are a really good fit.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, there's also a piece of bad news tied to that, and that is for copier or office machine manufacturers.
Yeah.
Clearly, there's nobody in the office today.
Yes,
So
yes,
there's no
yes.
click charges.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's quite bad. Interesting enough, in my conversations with Epson, HP, and Canon,
Mm.
their home printer business
Yes.
are doing great. And they're doing great because all these office workers, have printers that they haven't used in a long time. They need to buy new ink cartridges, new toner cartridges,
Yeah.
or even whole new printers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that consumer part of the business is very, very strong at the moment.
Yeah, actually, but I heard another news because China, the factory in China is shut down for a while, so they don't get any parts to produce it, even though the market demand is so strong, but they cannot produce, they cannot ship it.
You are right. So that will happen. So we're now only about 3 weeks into this in the US.
Yeah.
We're going to run out of parts. You're absolutely right. Yep. It will become a problem. So, okay. Anyway, so general commercial print, unfortunately, it's a big piece of the business. It's going to be hit pretty hard.
Okay.
But when it comes back, it will come back more to digital than anything else. By the way, people always ask us, when is digital print going to replace offset? When's that tipping point, right? And we had said for years, there will be no tipping point. There's so much offset, right? It will take past our working careers. Then more recently, we started looking at the demographic data. And basically, after the 2008 recession, there was a big decline in babies being born. So we have, starting in 2026, 500,000 fewer workers entering the US workforce than in any other period. So there's not a lot of young people that want to go work at a commercial printer. Not so exciting. I don't want to become an offset press operator.
Oh, yeah.
So we said that's 2026 is the time when you start to see the beginning of digital printing become more important than offset.
2026.
Right. That was before the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Now with the coronavirus, I would guess it's 2024 is when digital printing will start to become more important. It won't have replaced all offset, but it will be the beginning of that curve that becomes totally unstoppable, where offset print will go away.
Okay.
So, in the next 10, 20 years. Okay.
Right.
Transaction print. Transaction print is actually remarkably stable because all the financial institutions and the retailers need to get their bills out. They want you to pay. So they are sending out bills. Now, of course, the banks don't really want you to pay by check, right? It's an old-fashioned US thing. You have to write a check and mail it back, and then somebody has to touch it. And they don't want their employees to touch the paper. So they are pushing very aggressively to go to electronic payments. However, what happens is, and this is, again, sad, but many people will not be able to pay their bills. And so if you cannot pay your credit card bill, what happens is, by law, the credit card company has to send you in paper a letter saying you are overdue. And then you have to resend that letter 3 times before they can start trying to get the money from you.
Okay.
So the amount of paper statements is actually going up. And everybody's working very, very hard at these transaction print providers, because also many of the implants, right, like people that were printing their own statements, like small insurance companies, they don't have employees working. So they are outsourcing to big transaction providers like Broadridge and Fiserv. And so they are working 24/7 to get all those bills out. So that's a very good space at the moment. The downside, of course, is nobody's buying new printers. So they are using more of their existing equipment, running more shifts. So you will see a negative revenue impact, but maybe only 10%. But toner and ink doing great. So, but that's short term, by the way, because again, once we get past this, the banks are going to push very hard to get more electronic payments and statements.
Yeah, Marco, just small confirmation that the impact in 2020. So what happens, the impact, 10% down in comparison with the last year. So
Correct.
at this moment, you don't mention what happens in 2021. So let's discuss it later.
Okay, yes,
You get
we've had very heated discussions inside our office trying to
okay.
project what will happen.
Right.
Okay, but I'll
Okay.
talk to you about it in a second.
Okay.
All right, wide format.
Ah.
So this is CAD, not important. It's really only important to HP, Canon, and Epson. But that business is relatively okay because it's really no longer so much about architectural renderings and oil exploration drawings. It's about signage. So if you go into any sort of Staples or Office Max superstore in the US, they are all using CAD inkjet printers to print posters. So that business is hit now, but it will come back quickly because the equipment is relatively inexpensive to buy.
Yeah.
And it's very profitable. You know,
really?
if you print a regular page like this, right, you get maybe 5 cents. But if you print that as a wide format print, you're going to get 30 cents or more for that.
Okay.
So it's very profitable for print providers. So this will come back.
Okay.
The same with graphics, wide format graphics. So this includes UV and echo solvent and latex and the likes.
Yeah, everything.
A very bad effect right now because nobody's advertising. But once we come back, I think you'll see that grow very, very quickly, particularly for echo solvent and latex printers because they're relatively affordable. It'll take a little bit longer for the $1 million plus UV printers. But I think advertising will come back pretty quickly because people do want to go into stores. We want to socialize. We want to go back to bars and restaurants. They need signs. So that will come back. But short term, we're down probably 30%.
Yeah. Again, let us discuss later. So this year, sharp drop. And then after this corona issues is overcome, it start again to grow. But to which extent? Will it be recovered to before corona level or in comparison with this year, maybe 1 point sometimes, but still lower than last year?
It won't recover to the previous levels, to 2019.
Okay.
To answer your question now, at the moment, and who knows, we might be wrong, right? But our projection is that we will see a recovery in 2021 where you'll have growth of about 15%. In 2022, you'll see growth go up to 25%. And then 2023, it goes back down to 10%. And then 2024, 5%. But if you project that out and look at our numbers for 2024 before the coronavirus versus what the new numbers will look like, the total revenue will still be down about 15%.
Okay.
So the market will be smaller than it was before. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the next one is textiles. Yes. Oh my Buddha. This is a difficult one, right? For a whole host of reasons. Number one, inkjet textile printing was mainly in Italy, China, and other emerging markets that were extremely hard hit by the coronavirus. It is so sad when we talk to our friends in Italy because they are so frustrated not to be able to do anything. It's just, and so many people have had, tragic stories in their families. So that business is not good from an equipment perspective because nobody's buying, but there's another big problem with it. And that is most of that inkjet printed apparel was sold through fast fashion retailers, right? Zara, H&M, Uniqlo. Those are mainly selling their clothes through retail shops. They're not selling through online catalogs. And so nobody's going out to shop for clothing right now. And when it recovers, I think one of the things that we're going to find is this nasty little thing called habit change. We're going to realize we actually don't need so many clothes. Our children are going to say, wow, I really don't need that new dress because I haven't been able to work. right? So, and the dresses I have are fine. So we're very worried that this will take quite some time to recover
Okay.
for fashion in general.
Okay.
The good news is maybe if you look at soft signage as part of inkjet textile,
Mm-hmm.
that will recover much faster
Mm-hmm.
because it's part of advertising. And soft signage, people love soft signage. It's far more valuable, right, to the print provider than a vinyl sign.
Okay.
So that will come back, but unfortunately, this year, pretty difficult.
Yeah, this year, of course, no
Right,
exhibition, no shows, and that. Okay,
right.
good.
So I think let me stop here, and maybe, well, let's see what. Oh, just the packaging side still. I think. Sorry. All right. So corrugated. You know, volume-wise, they're doing fine in terms of supply. So those inkjet presses, like even the Nozomis, they're producing a lot of volume, and that's all good because the supermarkets still need to advertise food. The bad news is nobody's going to be buying any kind of new $1 million plus piece of equipment anytime soon. So, and because the equipment is so important to the overall revenue, because frankly, there's not a big enough base, right, to produce ink, the revenue's down at least 60%, maybe more in this space.
So print is going on, but new investment is not favorable at this moment.
Correct.
Nobody invests big money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Flexible packaging, frankly, not important. It is less than 1% of all digital vendor revenues. The only manufacturer that's doing anything in that area at all at the moment is Indigo. And they're doing fine, by the way. The packaging business is phenomenal right now. And the reason why packaging is so strong is because we've gone from what we call institutional packaging, meaning big packages for restaurants, to many small packages for consumers who are having to cook and eat at home. So the packaging business, print business, is phenomenal. It's doing very, very well. But again, you know, there's hardly any other digital equipment available for flexible packaging today. So it's not important. Okay, folding cartons, same thing. You know, there are very few suppliers today. The biggest one with the most expensive equipment, of course, was Heidelberg and Landa. And Heidelberg has publicly announced they are stopping investment in the Prime Fire. So a very sad situation because, you know, they'd spent a lot of money developing that. But Heidelberg as a company, I think, is one of those companies that's at risk of basically not surviving because they are, unfortunately for them, in the commercial print side. And, you know, 98% of their revenue is tied to offset. Nobody's buying a new offset press. They're going to buy a gently used, you know, refurbished offset press. They're not buying a new one. And so poor Heidelberg, right, doesn't have a packaging business to fall back on like KBA, for example, or Bops or somebody else. So anyway, very difficult. So folding cartons, again, not important in the scheme of things of our business.
Okay.
Labels doing really well because digitally printed labels, right? Remember, we're short on packaging at the moment. And so if you could take any kind of container and put a label on it, that's good enough. So the digital label printed business is doing great at the moment. And I think we'll continue to do fine. Not buying a lot of new equipment, but the amount of ink and toner consumption is phenomenal. So down 10% maybe. 3D inkjet, again, not very important. Other
not
than
yet.
Everybody loves the idea of 3D inkjet. Metal binder jetting in particular is very, very important. The downside to this is most of the activity, real commercial activity, and the investment in 3D inkjet printing has come from the automotive manufacturers. Because they're all very interested in the ability to make much lighter and stronger parts for electric cars, because weight is the enemy, right, of the battery life. So BMW and Ford invested recently, I think collectively something like $500 million in about 10 different 3D inkjet companies.
Okay.
But, you know, as the automotive business dies, right? I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
die, but it's in bad
Yeah.
shape.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
investment in 3D inkjet printing is also going to go down
Mm.
tremendously. But there's good news short term for making masks and all these other things.
Okay.
All right, so this is just a summary. It says, yeah, there's a lot of warnings.
Marco, just a
Yes.
moment. Yeah, before I forget, it's a kind of textile. What DTG? Do you have any idea about the DTG?
Oh, I skipped DTG.
Yeah.
Boy, to be honest, I haven't thought about it much. I think, you know, it's really more discretionary related and advertising related.
Mm.
So at the moment, not so good. Although remember, people are at home and they have more time to make their relatives feel better. So they
Yeah.
might print a T-shirt for grandma and grandpa.
Mm.
So there is some activity going on there, but
Okay.
not in the quantities that you saw before.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's buying new hardware. So that's not good. I
Mm-hmm.
think once the stores open again,
Mm-hmm.
you will see this come back very strongly because in part, many of the children, right? A lot of T-shirts are for children, for sports teams.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to want to get back together and
Okay.
enjoy each other company and show their pride in their teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I think DTG will actually come back very, very strongly,
Mm-hmm.
but not so good at the moment,
Okay.
right? Nobody's buying hardware.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this just gives you a general sense. And the key takeaway here is there are some positive sectors, right? Particularly in the packaging side and in transaction and in books.
Mm.
The rest, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Now, if you take this one more step and translate it into revenues,
Mm-hmm.
this is our summary chart. And that says,
Yeah.
look,
Mm.
in 2019, the vendor revenue for each of these applications worldwide was in, you know, those numbers.
Yeah.
The impact of the coronavirus is the third column. And then that translates into our projection for 2020 vendor revenues.
Mm-hmm.
You add it all up, you see total revenues going down about 32% for digital printer vendors.
Okay. Okay.
But again, there's certain segments like transaction only down 10%,
Mm-hmm.
right? Flexible packaging down only 5%.
Mm-hmm.
But those markets aren't necessarily very important. The most important ones, of course, ironically, and this was a big even surprise to me, is look how big wide format graphics is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Compared to production printing and textile printing.
Mm-hmm.
My God, really important.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, depending on what space you're in, if you're fortunate, your product mix will make the impact not so big.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not fortunate and you're mostly in general commercial print like Heidelberg, you're not going to feel very good.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
all right. So my last slide, I believe, basically, there are some downsides, of course, short term, right? And the biggest downsides are things related to advertising and high capital cost equipment. Nobody's buying it.
Mm-hmm.
Longer term, the habit change is a concern. But on the positive side,
Mm.
first of all, print, when it comes back, people are going to want much more relevancy, meaning they're going to order shorter runs and they're only going to buy what they really need that they think is going to be impactful. There's going to be a lot more testing, right? Test marketing, trial and error.
Yeah.
We need more automation because, you know, we can't get people to come back and become print operators. Very, very difficult. So we need more automation. And, you know, these shorter runs are going to mean that you can't really do that very cost effectively on offset or flexo. So, you know, if we can hang on the next couple of difficult years, once we get beyond 2024, this is going to be a really good business to be in. But we have to get through it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
all right. So let me stop there. We have about 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
that gives you some time to ask your questions. So
Yeah.
I will stop sharing my desktop. And then I'll give it back to you.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, yeah, thank you very much for your deep insight by sector by sector. It's very interesting for me and for everybody who is joining this webinar. So if I read through your 18-page report carefully, that your assumption is that your quarantine is start ending in May But here in Japan, it's just started, and we don't know yet what happens. Just 1 week ago, that Japan government is said maybe something like urgency declaration or something, and today is maybe 10th day, so we will see the result in some days, in few days. So, but my gut feeling is that kind of quarantine will never ever stop in May, because okay, that may slow down the peak, but then they loosen and start stimulating some economy. People is coming out from home to the town and shops and bars, and then again that will start. So it's a kind of thermostat switch, on and off and on and off at a very low level. So I
Yes.
think okay, start ending May is a little bit too optimistic, isn't it? This is my feeling. What about you?
Maybe. I think it's going to depend dramatically on the region.
Yeah.
So certain regions will be able to come back faster than others. It's also highly dependent on the amount of available testing, right? Realistically, everybody needs to be tested,
Yeah.
and probably needs to be tested many times.
Yeah.
Make sure that if you're asymptomatic and you've already had it, then you should be able to go back to work. And so we need to gradually roll back, right, all of these businesses.
Yeah.
The big concern is that once the summer starts coming, right,
Yeah.
right now, at least here in Boston, the weather is very terrible. It's cold. It's almost going to be freezing tonight. It's been raining. It's really depressing. But once the summer comes, we will want to go outside. And so it's going to be very difficult to say to people, sorry, you cannot go to the park. It's beautiful, right? And so we're going to have to carefully monitor, but I think you're right. In Japan in particular, you're probably going to be quarantined longer because you started later in a way, right? So I know, certain cities, small cities up in the north, probably, will go back to work faster than major areas like Tokyo. Might take. So,
Yeah, actually, that again, I know only about Japan, so I can just read a newspaper or watch TV what is happening outside of Japan. So I don't know much about what is happening in the Boston or Italy, or, for example, in Japan. Yeah, Tokyo is one big town, but okay, and bad news is too many people is there. But still, there is a good hospital and a big hospital and many hotels and for quarantine. But in the local area in Japan, it's okay. It's people activity is lower, much lower than Tokyo. But there are no good hospital, or the capacity of the hospital is very small. So it started from Tokyo, but now it's spread all over Japan. So I don't have a feeling that at least in Japan that will overcome in May, or at least in next some months. So another thing is in China, for example. China started a big disaster since the end of last year, and the Chinese government says now Wuhan is overcome. Now it's open again. Yeah, but think about only 80 million, 80,000 Chinese has infected, while the total population of China is, I don't know how to count that,
yeah, it's
1.4 billion.
1.3 billion. It's big.
So, yeah, so just 0.0006% of Chinese people is infected. So they have some immunity, yeah? So,
Right.
but the vast majority of Chinese people is still white, blank. So once Wuhan is open, but now it's starting again, the number of infected people in China is increasing. So again, even in China, they have to do on and off very carefully.
Yes.
So I think this kind of situation is totally damaged, or you just said that it's a infrastructure destroying action. Yeah,
Yes.
so I think this is my personal feeling that we should not be too optimistic. So we have to rethink based on the assumption of the very low level of economy for next at least 2-3 years. This is my assumption.
Well, you may be right, right? The problem is it truly would destroy the economy if it took that long. If we had to wait for a vaccine, right, which would be the right answer. But that's going to take at least a year or more, probably a lot more.
Yeah, vaccine.
And
Yes.
so I think we'll see gradual re-engagement, but we have to do it very selectively, right? And really monitor everybody's health, test them. There's no other way to do it. And you're right. I mean, if this extends, I mentioned to you earlier, you know, my children, their university sent us a note saying, maybe no university this fall, maybe online again.
Yeah.
Because they are so worried it will come back to virus.
Right.
And they don't want all these students from all around the world infecting each other. So
yeah, come on.
This could extend.
Actually, one of my grandsons just entered into elementary school from this April. And one entering the ceremony was there with just one parent is allowed to come in, go together. But from the next day, shut down until, at least until 6th of May. And then we still do not know what happens later. So
here, at least on the East Coast, most schools are now shut until September.
Go
back to school.
Okay, Marco, good. I have 2 questions from the participant.
I see them.
Yeah, can you see that? Yes. So first one is from Jun Kurokawa-san. In transaction, don't you think that the digital transformation will be accelerated by COVID as a worldwide trend of the transaction? In Japan, many companies rush us to change it from paper to digital for the cost reduction, maybe. Any comments on this?
Yes, so I think long-term, Kurokawa-san is correct. Short-term, particularly in the US, the answer is no, because people won't pay their bills on time. Because most US citizens don't have savings. So there's going to be many delinquent bill notices that will have to be printed on paper. The other thing that we're starting to see is that many of the people are now blending direct mail and transaction together because it's too difficult to filter. It's too easy rather to filter out online marketing, emails and likes, and social media. You just don't pay attention to it. So if you really want to reach a customer, that transaction statement plus a personalized message, marketing message, becomes very powerful. So it won't all disappear, and it's going to depend upon the company. Like for example, American Express, they hate print. They want only electronic. Citibank, they love print. They print all of their statements on inkjet because they use it to communicate with their customers once a month. So it depends on the company.
Okay, good. And the second question, which we received, how do you think, when is the best timing to start digital promotion activity as an inkjet component supplier, maybe inkjet head guy or inkjet ink guy, I don't know who, and virtual exhibition, emails, newsletter, web marketing in May or even later, or do it right now? Any opinion for that?
So first of all, I would do whatever you do it now. Don't wait. Because people, even though they're not selling anything, they still have to plan for the future.
Yes.
And so usually, the time required to put in new print heads, 18 months or longer. So don't wait. And I would do it through virtual marketing. Through a Zoom call like this. Follow it up with nice print, nice samples, right?
Yes.
But I would certainly do it. You can't, unfortunately, do it face to face. But I would make it a task to double the amount of interactions that you typically would have had by calling them twice as often and doing Zoom calls. In part because it's the human thing to do. We all like to hear from somebody else because we're going crazy sitting at home.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear from somebody
Mhm.
and share, right, problems in life. And two, it allows you more time because nobody's in a rush to really think carefully about what that printhead could do for you
Mm.
in the next generation of products.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so I would say mark it now and do it through Zoom calls and the likes.
Don't wait. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Actually, that people has lost opportunity. It's a FESPA or Drupa that is postponed, or maybe um, not just postponed. I don't know what happens next year. Do they
If
really
Drupa
revive it? So
cancels, that's it.
yeah,
If they cancel Drupa, there'll be never another Drupa again.
right, right. So I think I'm going to offer some platform for those company who want to do some web marketing or something. Um,
Mhm.
I regularly check recently very often what the internet website offers. So it's a big difference between Japanese company and overseas companies. Overseas company, typically HP, they are very active in movies and announcements through website, and they are very active. While Japanese company, I don't name it, just a beautiful website, but not too much active or proactively approaching to the customer, just waiting for the customer to visit, not from them to visit the customer. So I think um, maybe this is a time for Japanese people to change their mindset, not set up a big, beautiful, many pages, well-designed website, but more actively go to the market, like you just said, that the web meeting, Zoom visit to the company or something. Yeah,
Right.
client.
Good.
Don't wait. I think this
Right.
is the right answer, which I would share the same idea. Okay. This is the question already answered. Just last 4 minutes left.
Yep.
Just a moment. So I think this is the kind of not easy question to answer. So now almost all the company close the door. So they have very strong border control or quarantine. For example, in the EU, European Union, their idea is to become United States of Europe, like USA. They're the states, but original idea. But now, okay, Italy is Italy, Spain is Spain, France is France, and Netherlands is Netherlands. Germany a little bit different. They still accept some patient from Italy or neighbor country from France, but basically they are closing, become independent. Or so. What happens when the corona is gone, more or less gone? How they reopen the border and um, so yeah, my question here, what is the steps towards the normalization? Any idea?
So, again, I don't have all the answers, but
Yeah, of course.
my suggestion would be, number one, we have to have testing. That's number one. Without testing, you won't know who's got it, who's
Yes.
infected, and who
Yeah.
can go back to work. So
Mm-mm.
testing is number one, most important. Secondly, we unfortunately will probably have to maintain this social distancing,
Yeah.
right, for
Yeah.
quite some time. You have to be careful going into the stores and not going to concerts and all these things. So that's going to be, the new normal for many years, unfortunately.
No more
And,
hug. No more
no
hugging.
hugs. Oh, it's so sad,
So
really.
sad, right?
If you're Italian, oh my God, you've lost all contact.
Okay.
But anyway, and then the third thing is we have to have that vaccine at some point. So, you said maybe 3 years. I think that's too long, but I think we will slowly, at least in the US, start to roll out certain businesses starting in May. for example, like right now, you cannot get a roof done on your house, no construction. But as of May 4th, I think that they'll allow that again because it's outside and it's not in contact with a lot of people.
Okay.
So certain businesses will come back. So that's one.
Good.
The US presidential election, I know
Yes.
we only have a minute or so, but first of all, my personal feelings are maybe very strong on this, but I don't think there's a guarantee that Biden will win. We've got a 73-year-old president now, a 78-year-old prospective president. Both of these are very vulnerable to the corona disease. Not a good situation. And so we've reached a stage where I think many Americans will vote for anybody other than Trump. So whether it's a 78-year-old guy or somebody else, doesn't matter. We want somebody else. The reality is presidential elections in the US are not decided by the population. They're decided by the Electoral College, which is a very complicated thing to explain. But basically, the answer is the election comes down to 5 states, Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and one other. Okay. And depending on what happens in those states, that's who's going to win the election. So it's not a conclusion that Trump is going to lose. I mean, at the moment, I think if the popular vote were held, yes, people want him gone because he's not showing leadership. He's causing this to continue to go on. But, what do we do?
Yeah. If we start talking about Donald Trump, I think we cannot stop. So maybe
that's it.
Let's do it in maybe next occasion.
Yes.
So, okay, Marco, it's time. So thank you very much, very much again for joining today as a partner speaker.
No, thank you. My pleasure to have so many people listen in, really. That's wonderful.
And keep in touch and meet online from time to time.
Yes. Please invite me again. I'll come back, and as we learn more.
I will. Maybe next time you can drink wine and then you can speak a little bit more frankly.
Sparkling water. But I'll have some wine now.
Okay. Okay. Do
Great.
it. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you again. Bye-bye. Keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. では一旦皆様、これでマルコ・ボアのセッションを終わらせていただきます。資料先ほど事前登録された方には日本語のやつをお送りしましたけど、ちょっと今彼が使ったスライドももらえたらもらうように後で頼んでみます。では一旦終了します。ありがとうございました。